This is The Final Word. It is still season 15. It's episode 30. We're deeper into March. Geoff Lemon, Adam Collins, looking at each other as we often do when we record this program, because that's how it works. Here we are. What are we doing? We're back. We're home. You're home. I'm home. You are in London. I'm in Melbourne. We're back to hands across the ocean, and I mean, well, it feels like the end of a season, but our season hasn't quite ticked over because we have to get to the end of the Australian first class season and the transition to the English first class season before we go into season 16. But yeah, we're in our sort of post season, slightly more relaxed, off the road, sit by the fireside, get your slippers. You don't need to do that in Melbourne because it's been scorching hot. Weird coming back here after it's been 40 degrees in this crazy heat wave and so on. And for that couple of weeks I've been in New Zealand where it's been freezing almost all of the time. But yeah, you're probably not encountering quite that level of climate clash as you get back to London, where I assume it's also freezing.
Yeah, hello Geoff. Not freezing, quite temperate. It was nice to get home yesterday. I've broken jet lag in one night. It's that 5 a.m. arrival, which I'm quite used to now at Heathrow, where you've just got to desperately do everything in your power to stay awake. So I always fill my diary with stuff and meetings and calls and whatnot that day, and had quite a productive afternoon. Then completely hit the wall around the time that I was picking up the girls from nursery. But yeah, so good to see them, having been away for 4 weeks. It was a really good trip. I'm really happy with how things went in New Zealand, and that time back in Melbourne over the weekend, which was so special. I didn't expect to be I knew Saturday was going to be a big deal, seeing Hawthorn play at the G for the first time since 2016. I didn't realise I was going to be that affected by it though. You spend your whole, in my case, I stood on that standing room step in M10 from when I was 16 through to when I was 32. That's a long part of your life. That's a substantial part of your life where you're with the same people every week, be it, best friends, people I've gone on to be in the weddings of, people in my wedding as well last year, through to people who you know the name of or the nickname of, and you know the sort of things they say, the sound of their voice, but that's about all you know, other than their allegiance to Hawthorn. So it's that clashing of worlds, and you spend all this time together, or we did spend all this time together, but I've just been absent. And, I have lost a little bit of that obsessiveness around Hawthorn. I don't have the encyclopedic knowledge of the current team that I would have every other team since I was born, pretty much. But it didn't take long to plug straight back into it, and having that perfect Saturday afternoon, round one, Essendon, ignoring the result to an extent. They played pretty well, I thought, but Hawthorn that is, but didn't get the points. But more generally, just being so overwhelmed with gratitude that I was there. Who knows how long it'll be till the next time that I get to be with those people in a setting like that. May never be the case. It might be that people's circumstances change and those characters won't all be stood there with me. But yeah, it was a beautiful way to end the trip. And I mentioned last week on the show, DJing at finishing school the night before, not the same torrent of emotions, but same in a way. That's something that I did for my whole 20s and into my 30s, and getting to do that again was a really nice thing, and being there with lots of people who I love as well. So yeah, an emotional weekend, a worthwhile weekend, and happy to be back in London for this. Yeah, you make the point before that it's a strange time of year for us because the IPL starts in a couple of days. It runs for all the way up until the World Cup, and international cricket kind of ticks along in the background but largely stops. So that changes the types of programs that we will make. There certainly won't be any daily shows between now and the World Cup, so we have the chance to do a few more long-form interviews. I loved what you did with Glenn Turner. I listened back to it when I was on the way from Heathrow yesterday. That was an absolute cracker. So that's the first in this series of interviews that we'll do March, April, May, and on we go, as ever.
Well, just super chuffed to be able to line it up. The fact that he was willing to take the time to do it, which was very generous. But, someone who we've spoken about so much, I don't know, it's like getting to do an interview with Wally Hammond or Frank Ward or something. He's a character to me. He's a storytime character, and then suddenly, there's the actual real person, and you actually get to ask them about the stories that you've talked about on the show, and while sitting up in Wanaka looking over this gorgeous lake. So yeah, the trip, we drove around for 6 days with Bharat and Isha, and had a great time. It's definitely reinforced that there's a reason that I follow cricket, because it means being in summer all the time. Winter is not my bag. And up in the mountains in New Zealand, even though it was the middle of March, it was pretty frosty a lot of the time. I can deal with that for a couple of weeks, but probably not much longer than that. But extraordinary country, just so vivid. The mountain ranges, the incredible lakes, the countryside coming at you, rather than just sort of sitting passively in the background. And yeah, there's a good simpatico. Bharat and I are both people who just like to sit and drive for a long time. So we just get into that meditative state where long distances are not a problem. So that means between us we'll cover a lot of territory. And Isha just has a remarkable facility for patience, because the two of us are sitting there just burbling on, talking absolute shit, or like singing little songs. We both have that habit where someone says something to you and then like you sing it back to them or something. And I haven't known a lot of people who do that, but he does that and I do that. So then the two of us together, it's this horrible feedback loop. And she just calmly sort of drifts off and looks into the middle distance and goes into somewhere deep in her mind palace, and doesn't seem to mind at all. So yeah, it was a nice way to finish off the touring summer, and I guess the touring sort of 13, 14 months really that it's been before that, going all the way back to the previous Australian summer, which went smack bang into the test trip to India, and on we went.
Yeah, that's how I felt as well when back in Melbourne. It felt like that was the end of a thing. Like, even though we'd had brief breaks before that, and I didn't go to India, of course, for the World Cup, but was on the tools with you every day, and still making the show as in that kind of daily ritual or rhythm. We've hit that end of the season, and cricket isn't particularly good for finish lines at the best of times, but it does feel like we reached one for at least a time, and the players feel that way too. Talking to a couple of them at the end of the Christchurch Test match, who they know this is the end of a stretch that means they can take a beat and start reflecting on what's been. And yeah, it's kind of nice. I've been in that reflective mood. Mentioned the football earlier, but been in that reflective mood about what does home constitute for me? Like what is where am I in my life? And these are all good things. It's good to sort of have enough space to consider that. A 17.5-hour direct flight from Perth will give you that time as well. But yeah, it's good for us to not be making quite as many shows, but hopefully the quality of them will still be there, and you'll be with us as an audience until we hit the next busy period in June, and so on and on it will go. The other thing I liked about your road trip, by the way, and this might have been lost upon those who listen to our podcast but don't watch our YouTube feed, is the Clarrie Grimmett video that you made at the front of his house. Yeah. I assume that was what must have been Isha filming you, and did a beautiful job, like a sort of cinematic style, back and forth and panning across the front door and so on. But yeah, if you liked hearing about Glenn Turner, it's likely that you'll be keen on watching this video that Geoff and Bharat made at the front of Clarrie Grimmett's childhood home.
Well, we had to, once we got the extra day, because we were trying to work out if we had time to go to Dunedin, because the test finished a day early. We had that extra 24 hours, so we went, okay, we've got to do it. We've got to have our pilgrimage to the street where Clarrie was born. We're not 100% sure whether he was born in that house or in the house around the corner on David Street, or whether it was the one on Fitzroy Street. But his sort of family, his grandfather's home, the kind of family estate is still there and still standing and still in decent nick. And with the renovations, there seemed to be some repairs going on. It did make me wonder, is it going on the market? Do you and I need to try to buy Clarrie Grimmett's house? You've got a Batmobile. I mean, is it a possibility? Maybe we could do an old Kickstarter or something. Let's buy Clarrie's place.
If anyone's watching the video of this, you'll see my ears have picked up. I'm like, whoa, this might be on sale, might it?
It might.
Find out. All I'm going to say is find out more information and let me know. I'm not in the market for a kind of like a rental property in the South Island of New Zealand. I can't afford such an indulgence, but collectively, it might be the sort of thing that we could consider.
Imagine we get like 50 final word listeners.
Enjoy this stuff as much as
they all chuck in, and we buy Clarrie Grimmett's house. Could be done.
Oh, yeah. I'm obviously up for this. There's a group of friends and I who, indeed friends that you now spend a lot of time with, Geoff, in Melbourne. And for a long time, we were trying to buy a warehouse in Melbourne where we'd get I think we had about 15 people who committed to buying, if we found a suitable place, a warehouse share house. It didn't happen, sadly. But, same kind of energy that if the price is right, if Larry Emder is there, then it's possible. So watch this space. We've got a pretty busy show to get through, Geoff, but before we talk about international cricket and the end of the WPL and a bit of Shane Watson, Sheffield Shield, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Ireland, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, better get that right. Don't want to get in trouble there. And Australia's relationship with Afghanistan. There's quite a bit there. I just wanted to talk about a couple of our final word listeners who are playing in local grand finals over the weekend. This is such an important time of the year. You play club cricket from usually the first weekend of October, which I've always thought a weekend too early because you can sometimes run into problems with footy grand finals. But nevertheless, it's a long, long cricket season and it ends around this time of year. Some grand finals this weekend, some grand finals are next weekend. But in the case of Dane Hanstead, who we love on the show, he's been a great supporter and correspondent of ours. He made a comeback for how long this year? It's like when you go to the doctor.
How long was he retired?
Work. And he made 61 in the granny, and he said on his Facebook forum, which is Dano's Leg Spin if you're interested, without a doubt the best day of my cricketing life. He put on a 156 run stand with his brother Jordan, who made 116 from 74 balls. So a premiership for how long with the Hanstead brothers. And then closer to home in terms of people we have a relationship with that goes back, 20 years for me, with Andrew Donison, Dono, who was our producer in the UAE back in 2018 and so much more than that. He walked in the 45th over of a grand final when they were absolutely stuffed on Saturday, EMT. They were 8 for 116 and he got them through to the compulsory closure at 72 overs and made 9 not out from 69 balls. Unfortunately, he was 1 from 59 at one stage, as you've noted here as well, Geoff. Sadly, the other mob won at 8 wickets down. Dono did his back, but still bowled 8 overs. He's quite angry because he got through the whole season unscathed and did his back in both the semi-final and the grand final. But 1 for 20 from 8 was his analysis. They did lose EMT, so it wasn't to be. But a couple of final worders there. And last but not least, Shannon Gill, who has been the president of Manningham Cricket Club forever. Gilly, who long-term listeners would know from the Greatest Season It Was days, and these days is a terrific writer at Code Sports. And he's been on the final word a number of times and supported Geoff in endless ways. They won the flag in their first team on Saturday, playing one-day cricket these days, Manningham. And Gilly made 27 opening the batting to help set it up. So a flag for El Presidente at Manningham, which rounds off the grand finals in our little world. And let us know if you're playing in one next week, and we'll try and drop it into the show this time next week.
Oh, Dono, the cruelty of cricket. He was nursing and managing that back all the way through the season, keeping it intact, still bowling, still getting through his overs, and then it goes on in the grand final, gets the opposition skipper out, but couldn't go on to more, and to lose at 8 down. But the one from 59 balls at one point, the scorecards were circulating. That was tough. I think Glenn Finkeld had a chastening loss as well down at his club in southeastern Melbourne. So, results go both ways. It's as we sometimes say about cricket, it's a shit game. Cricket. It can be a real shit game to play.
Almost all of the time.
Yeah,
almost all of the time. Well, that would have been. He got back in. He was playing 2s all year, Glenn, and he came back down to the 3s because they were trying to get me a game there a few weeks ago, which I loved playing with Glenn for Hampton. He made a couple of half centuries on the way into the granny, and wasn't to be. But what with Glenn is there'll always be next season. He's played sort of something like 400 games of senior cricket, and I think that's a lovely thing that you get to the end and you're like, right, how will we go better next time?
A piece that I wanted to throw in as well, this lost bit of gold from Sheehan Arnott, who listeners who pay attention will know is involved with Westfield. Now, he's been getting better and better with the copy he was writing for us for the daily shows, but this one got lost because England lost in 3 days, and I couldn't let this one go unread on the show, even though they're not actually technically a sponsor of this particular episode. But he wrote this: if you were pulling together an 11 of interesting characters from Test cricket history, you'd have to give serious thought to including Sreesanth, 27 tests, claiming that he would need, quote, the powers of the Spider-Man to fight Andrew Simons. A life ban for spot fixing in the IPL, which was later reduced, allowing him to continue to play first class for 3 more years. A couple of Bollywood movies, a few name changes, coming second in the Indian version of Big Brother despite threatening to quit 299 times, unsuccessfully running for Parliament for the BJP. And you have an unforgiving minute filled with 60 seconds worth of distance run. Among all this, he was also briefly a professional bodybuilder. So if you would like a rig like Sreesanth had at one point, download the PT Pods app and use the code Westfield, because you never know if one day you might need to fight Sreesanth. That is... Sheehan he's improved along the journey, but that's his masterwork for me. There's just something about the concept of like, when would you find yourself in a position where you had to fight Sreesanth and you were like, well, I'm glad I got jacked first because here we go. It's a beautiful idea. I don't know when it could come about, but I like the idea of living in a world where it could.
We spoke a little bit about Sreesanth on Storytime about a year ago, but I didn't have quite that level of detail. So nice from Sheehan. We'll have Westfield back with us for those daily shows I mentioned in America and beyond. So that's terrific. If you want to hang out with us, by the way, on the Final Word between times through the English summer, not on the daily shows, but on this kind of stuff, do sing out finalwordcricket@gmail.com. As they say in the industry, we're in market at the moment when it comes to working out our commercial arrangements. So there's a nice little segue. So or get in touch with me directly or Geoff directly, and we can have a conversation about being part of this lovely thing that we do here on the show.
So what else have we got? We mentioned Shane Watson last week, maybe coaching Pakistan. That's not going to happen anymore. Sadly, we got very excited for about 3 days, and then he bailed. The supposed race, doesn't have a lot of candidates left in the race at the moment. They've all been dropping out. It's like that short story by Stephen King, the Long Walk. No, it's a novella more than a short story. But yeah, the competitors drop out one by one. I'll leave the description at that. But yeah, Watto's been very Pakistan focused. He's been coaching the David Guetta Gladiators in the PSL. There was some reporting that he was not happy that the salary discussions got leaked, but I think a lot of that was probably just bullshit anyway. There was reporting that he'd been offered $2 million US a year to do the job, which is apparently not true. It was a lot less than that. But most likely the problem is that they wanted him to start pretty much straight away, and he's got a commentary gig at the IPL. And I suspect that if you turn down a commentary gig at the IPL in order to coach Pakistan, A, coaching Pakistan usually lasts for about 6 months before you get fired, and B, you would probably not then get another commentary gig at the IPL after that.
No, that's right. And look, I don't think Watto would need to get out of bed for $2 million either. He would have made so much money in the T20 circuit and what he's doing on television, and he has all the options in the world. It's a shame. I was up for it. I was thinking that we'd spent a lot of time when we were in Christchurch talking about the Mighty Ducks, and I'm not saying that Shane Watson's Gordon Bombay, but I can see some similarities in the personality.
Gordon Karachi.
The PSL did finish last. Yeah, that's right. The PSL final did get played last night, by the way, Geoff. I wouldn't have a clue who won. I don't know who was playing. I don't really care who was playing. What I do know is that Pak Bean from the 2021 T20 World Cup was in the audience. Just to recap, this was the Mr. Bean impersonator from Pakistan who rocked up in Zimbabwe for a gig claiming to be Rowan Atkinson and was rumbled. I wonder how that happened. And I don't know how this is sequenced either, but he's ended up at the PSL final in the bleachers dressed up like Mr. Bean in proper uniform.
Yep.
So I'm glad that's still running. I need to know more. I feel like we need to know more. We need to get him on the show. I don't know how good his English is, but we need him on the Final Word.
Yeah. See, I don't know if the impersonation involves a lot of actually doing the bits, because mostly what he seems to do is he does the smile and the nod, and he holds the teddy bear. But I suppose it was mostly a non-verbal comedy program. But I don't know if he can do the voice. Does he try to do the voice? The one thing I will say is that Pak Bean impersonating probably needs to do a bit more time on the treadie, because, and I'm not here on this show to body shame people. I've been in all sorts of states myself in my life. Just that if your stock in trade is impersonating someone, then you do in fact need to look like them, and being, say, 40 to 50 kilograms heavier than Mr. Bean doesn't help with the impersonation. That's all. He's obviously been in a pretty good paddock even since his Zimbabwe trip.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Rowan Atkinson. That was made. It's not made long after Blackadder, is it? You think timing wise? I think Mr. Bean's 92 to 95. I want to say. So he's still pretty young dude at that point in time. There isn't much of a voice to do, is there? Remember, it's just kind of like it's sort of like a laugh you used to do, but didn't do much.
But you've got to do the kind of
character.
Here we go. There's kind of there are words, but they're done in a very particular style. I don't know how easy that would be to knock off. Also at the popping up on camera last night, Imad Wasim, the finest Welsh Pakistani cricketer, going around just having a durry after taking 5 and getting pinged on camera, sitting up in the players' room behind the glass. Probably the only cricketing country I've visited where you can just punch darts in the stadium, and not only does no fire alarm go off, like no one even glances around. Some of the commentary colleagues locally were pretty happy to indulge in that when we were there.
From memory, there was a room where the commentators were. Wasn't there a designated room it was Karachi, wasn't it, where the commentators could go and smoke?
No, it was just the box that we'd vacated because we were doing commentary on the roof, and so we'd left a box inside,
that's right.
And so that just got taken over and turned into the smoking box.
Yeah, people just clam baking that room, punching darts, as you say.
Wind the windows up
out onto the very hot balcony. Yeah, that's right. You can tell both of us grew up in the outer suburbs. The
compression session.
The shots of Imad Wasim photos and the pics on television. I mean, it does rather point to a more laid back culture. So looking forward to getting back to Pakistan at some stage. Again, have no idea who won the tournament, but Imad Wasim, I think, had taken a fifer before he'd
he had
before he'd been spotted in the viewing room. So good luck to him.